Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker. Look here, this is part 2 of my interview with a convicted sex offender. And I want to make sure that everybody out there is paying attention and listening because we're going to get into it in this episode. We're going to be talking about the crime in particular, not grimy details. Y'all know how I do it. It's not about that. This is about learning and healing. But we are going to be getting into it, and I hope that you stay tuned, listen to what's being said with an open heart, a clean heart, so that we can get to the heart of the matter on situations like this and maybe prevent a lot of this from happening in our households and our communities, so that we all can live in peace and be as one. But like I said before, to do that, you got to get to it. You got to own it. You got to say what it is so that people can learn from the decision that you made. And I appreciate Eddie for doing this because I think this is going to be one of those episodes that is going to help a lot of people. So with that said, I want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome back, man.
All right, thank you.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Good, thank you. Again, I want to thank you for doing this, okay?
Okay, I
know
appreciate
how hard this is, you know what I'm saying? But I think it's a worthy thing.
I do too.
I really do.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah. I've always wanted to do an interview like this, but it's been hard, you know what I'm saying? Understandable. But look here. I ended episode 1 about to get into your crime. Is there anything that you want to add to this interview before we get into that you didn't get to say in the first episode?
Yeah. Kind of set it to the stage a little bit better, if you will.
Yeah, go ahead.
When my wife and I were married, we didn't have we have only one child, and he wasn't born until about 6 months before our 20th anniversary.
Okay.
And like I said, with my childhood being so dysfunctional, and we didn't talk about anything that was, you don't make waves, emotions, anything. So I had kept it, I've kept everything in for years and years. And my wife had, of course, tried to help me get past that. But of course, I resisted pretty much every attempt by her. And then once our son was born, being 20 years and stuff like that, it really kind of upset the apple cart. Well, there was something about his birth, I guess, and what I have later found is the emotions and everything involved with a birth of a child. It scared me to death. And I pretty much wound up eventually turning my back on my wife because and the main reason for that was because, we had waited so long and now we could have children. Of course, right, she wanted to have another child right off the rip after having one, and it just freaked me out so bad. I was like, I couldn't do it. I didn't know how to handle it. So, of course, I just kept it all in instead of all I had to do was sit down and talk to her, and we could have figured our way through it, but I didn't do it.
Yeah, because you were not used to sharing.
Yes.
Even though you had been with her that whole time. You're just not used to sharing. Before I get into the crime, you just made me think of something. So the 20 years that you married, did you ever step outside of your vows at all?
No.
So you had no encounters with men, women, nobody at all? You were faithful. Okay, good. All right, now, let me get to it, right? You said that there was a single mother.
Yes.
That had moved into the neighborhood. And she worked at night. And you and your wife opened up your house to babysit.
Yes.
To help her out so she could get more hours.
Yes.
So on and so forth. How did that conversation come about?
I don't think there really was. I mean, it might have been just mentioned off the cuff, kind of, we said that, she got along so well with Jackson and she really wasn't any trouble, because they kept each other busy.
Right.
So.
Who offered to babysit?
Yeah.
Who offered to babysit, you or your wife?
I think we both did.
Okay, did that. Now, let me ask this question before we proceed. At the time that, you would watch her, the little girl and your son playing, were there any thoughts in your mind about?
Not for, I'd say, 2 or 3 months.
So after 2 or 3 months of her being around,
Mm-hmm.
you started to see her.
Yes, I started becoming attracted to her.
You did.
Yes, in a way I shouldn't have.
In a way that you shouldn't have. Right.
Right.
Now, when that was taking place, you said before, and I'm going to assume a lot, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were not used to sharing what
Right.
you were feeling
Right.
with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Your wife, nobody.
Nobody.
And you never got into therapy at all in your life.
There was
Before
well, there
that
was
time?
there was one time that when I was in the Coast Guard that I went to a therapist, and I was surprised how easy everything just flowed out. And that was like an hour session, like you normally do. But once I left, and of course she wanted to see me again, and I should have gone back. But once I was through with it, and I got home and realized what was going on, and all those feelings started coming up, I never went back.
Okay. So you cut it off.
Right.
Okay. Now after you said 2 or 3 months,
Right.
you're looking at this child, and you started to be attracted
Right.
to her. Can you think of anything that she may have done or said that made you something trigger in your head and be like,
No.
attracted to her?
The only thing though that might have had something to do with the mental health aspect was, like I said, I had turned my back on my wife, and what I had started doing was going on the internet and looking at a lot of internet porn.
Oh, now that's important. So before you and your wife started babysitting, were you looking at porn?
Yes.
How long had you been looking at porn?
I'd say probably for a year or so.
Okay, now help me, you know what I'm saying, on this. Like, I don't even know if this is the right word. What kind of porn were you looking at?
I was looking at a little bit of everything, but I never watched or looked at anything that was illegal. No kind of
And
child
when you say
porn,
illegal, you mean
child porn, or anything illegal.
No animal or none of that kind
No,
of stuff.
no, no.
Okay, so you were looking at this porn, and did it affect the relationship with your wife?
Of course it did.
What, it set up unrealistic expectations?
Right. Well, that, and it just
Did she watch it?
it isolated. I would say it isolated me even more from my wife.
Did she know you were watching it?
She had a good idea, yes,
Oh,
and she had said something once or
okay,
twice.
She did say
Yes.
something to you about
Yes.
it? You just ignored her?
Yes.
Okay, now, so you think that may have had a factor, played a role in
Yes,
you
and-
being attracted to?
Right.
Okay, so let's get to.
But let me make sure though,
Okay,
the
go ahead.
bottom line though of anything that I say was that I made the wrong decision,
Of
and I have
course.
to accept the responsibility of my actions.
Right, yeah. I got you on that, and I agree
Okay.
with that, and I don't want to.
I just want to make sure that's
I don't
clear
wanna
out
push
there.
Past that.
Right.
I'm not pushing past that. I just want to unpack how you were thinking, what was going on at
Right.
that time. It's not. I'm not doing this to make it seem that you're not.
Right. No, and I didn't. I just want to make sure so viewers out there realize that
Right.
that know what the real deal is.
Right, I got you.
Okay,
So
okay.
you were watching this porn. When do you remember the first time you looked at her and was like attracted? What was that about? What was that like?
I don't really remember the very first time. I just know I started feeling different about her.
Can you describe it
Well, I mean, I was like in a sexual way.
in a sexual
I started
way?
getting aroused.
Right. Okay. And did she? And when you did do that, did you try to get away from her? Go,
No,
did you
I
sit there and
just
watch?
I made it worse by
Stay.
giving her more attention than what I should have.
Okay. Where was your son at during this time?
He was there with us.
Right. So did he ever notice that you started paying more attention
Not
to
that I'm not
her?
that not that I'm aware of.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so tell me about. So this is over. So how long did y'all babysit?
This was I would say roughly about 6 months, maybe
About 6 months. So 2 months into the 6 months is when you became attracted.
2 or 3
to
months.
her. Okay. When did you? How did it come about that you actually did something? To her?
Well, there was something that happened, and She wanted me to massage her back.
Okay.
And I
How did that come about? A 7-year-old asking you to massage her?
because I had worked on her mother.
Okay, so she doesn't understand.
Right.
She's just asking you to do the same
Right.
thing that
Right.
you had done to her mother.
And she had asked several times, and I had resisted, and then I just got to a
You
point
gave
where
in.
I gave in. Yes.
Where was her mother when this happened? She was at work.
Yes.
Was any adult around?
No. There was no.
Your son?
He was asleep.
Got it. So did she just not go to sleep? What was it, nap time or something like that?
Yes.
She just didn't go. So it wasn't a situation where you woke her up or anything like
No,
that. She was just
no.
up. Okay, so you gave her a massage.
Yes.
Okay. And what was that like for you?
I don't remember being that aroused by it, but I shouldn't have done it because anytime that you work on a child, you're supposed to have an adult with you.
Right.
And then then after that, I guess the feelings of it right afterwards is when kind of I lost it with everything.
Yeah. And I think that's important because a lot of times when you hear about cases like this,
Yes.
they don't go into how it came about, or they just go into the incidents. You feel
Right,
what I'm saying?
right.
How it came about is important. How it comes about is important because those are the red flags,
Yes.
in my opinion, that lead up to that. So you saying that porn,
Right.
it gave you unrealistic expectations
Right.
with the relationship with your wife, that you
Right.
just had turned your back on her.
Right.
The second thing is that you started to be aroused
Right.
by this child, and then you didn't seek out anybody to discuss that with.
No. I kept it all inside.
Right. And I don't know if were there people around at that time that you could have talked to.
Oh yeah, there would have been somebody. I could have talked to my wife. I could have talked to somebody at church, and it's strange because while this was right before this was going on, and I knew what was going on in my head and how messed up everything was. The church I go to, the minister had come up and asked me to be an elder, and when when she asked, the only reaction I could have was just burst out laughing, and I was like, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that because I knew. I knew what was going on inside my head. Yes.
Did you? And I'm asking this with all due respect. Did you seek out God at this time? Did you?
No.
You did not.
No.
What was your relationship like with the Most High?
I would say at that point because the church that we went to was a very liberal church, and you can believe whatever you want to believe. So I've always, because I was raised Catholic in the Catholic Church, that I've always believed in God, but I never had him on the phone very often at all, to say the least.
Right.
Never prayed or did anything
So
like
when
that.
all of these things were happening to you, you never talked to anybody.
No.
Never talked
Not
to
at all.
God. Never talked to anybody.
Nobody.
You just let it progress.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not going to get into specifics about what you did.
Okay.
I'll let people assume what they assume. You understand what
Right.
I'm saying?
Right.
But it was, I'll ask this one question in that aspect so they can get an idea. It was penetration.
Just yes, but no vaginal penetration.
Got it. Okay. So, what was her reaction like? Was she afraid?
I would say so. Yes.
Did you threaten her?
No.
What did she think? Did she say to you anything about why are you doing this to me?
No, she never said anything.
Did you see fear in her face or anything? Did you?
I don't remember seeing any fear in her face.
What were you thinking at the time? Were you?
To tell the truth, I knew what I was doing was wrong, and I could not stop myself.
You could not stop yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's interesting. So, describe what that's like. That not the incident, but that not being able to stop yourself. You just.
It just was real confusing.
real confusing?
Yes.
Were you like in a daze to the, not like
There
confused?
was, I wouldn't say like a daze. It just was just a whole mental kind of a breakdown
Just
or
a total
something.
mental
Yes.
break.
Well, I've always termed as what I went through is kind of like I imploded.
Imploded.
Mm-hmm.
You knew it was wrong, but you just could not
Mm-hmm.
stop yourself from doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of people say that when it comes to like a violent charge, right?
Yes.
Murder or whatever.
Yes.
It's like an out of body experience.
Now,
You know
part of it that I did, I remember seeing it was like an out of body
yeah,
experience.
you know that it's
yes.
wrong, but it's like
Yes. Yes.
it's almost like a supernatural thing. It's happening.
Right.
Almost like being possessed. You know how you watch a lot of the movies on TV when a person is
Mm-hmm.
possessed or whatever, and then they do this, and then they come out of it, it's like, what did I do?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that. Kind of like that. So I understand what you're saying with that. So after, what, 3 months of this going on with her?
Now the actual crime lasted. It was 3 different times over 3 weeks.
Okay, so it was 3 different times over 3 weeks. So the second time, how did you get to the point to where okay, let me ask you this. Did she say no at any time to you? Even though she shouldn't have to. She was a child.
Yes,
But did she
yes, she
ever
did.
say
She did,
no?
and I honored her wishes.
So when she said no, you stopped.
It was on specifics. Yes.
So what was it that, if she said no, that you expected a 7-year-old to be very specific
Right.
in what she didn't want you to do.
Yes.
So if she didn't say don't do A, if she said don't do A but not do B, didn't express anything on B, you did B.
Yes.
And when you started to do what it was she wasn't specific about, what was her reaction like? Confusion, fear? Because that's a lot to put on a 7-year-old.
Right. Oh,
You're
I
expecting
understand. I
her
understand.
to-
That's what the thing that amazes me the most is how I either brought her up to my level or I reduced myself to her level, and this whole like emotional kind
What
of
do
a
you
thing.
mean reduce?
Well, I mean,
yourself to her level?
take myself
I
to a
want you to explain
7-year-old.
that.
Yeah, take myself down to a 7-year-old.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
that's what I mean.
I got you. I just wanted you to explain.
Right,
that.
right.
So now it happens again, but the third time it's the same. She said no
Right.
to this, but
Right.
she didn't say anything about the
Right.
other. So you assume you took privilege and did it anyway. Right?
Right.
Okay. So when that happens, what led to her not coming back over there?
Well, like I said, she had been staying with us, and after the last time,
Okay.
the next morning, I took her and my son to school, and then after that, she never came back.
Okay, now, let me, hold on a second. Between those times where she was staying with you, going to school, that period right there, did your wife ever ask you what's going on? Had her behavior changed? Had the little girl's behavior changed any?
Not that I'm aware of. No, nobody's
Not that
not.
you were aware. So
no,
your wife never said, she's acting different.
No.
The mother, when she would come by, she never
Yeah,
said anything?
she never said
you know?
anything either.
And you never noticed her behavior different?
No.
Did your son, even though he was a child too, did he ever say, nobody noticed a change? Because it had to be a change in her behavior.
Right.
That's,
I
we can
yeah,
agree
yeah,
with that.
Yeah.
But nobody really
No,
noticed.
nobody said anything.
Okay. Was she afraid of you?
I don't think
Did she
so. I
ever
never got the impression that she was.
So you were totally oblivious to
Right.
any of the things that you would expect to come out of that, the fear, like you didn't see
Right.
any of that. You were totally
Right.
glossed over on that. Okay, so when she left and didn't come back, tell me what that was like for you. How long between the time she didn't come back to the time that you were arrested? How long was that?
I would say that was roughly about 3 or 4 months.
3 or 4 months?
Yes.
And then what was that like for you? Did you?
I had like, I know what I had done and I knew that it was wrong. And I had a premonition that I was not going to get away with it.
So those 3 months between the time she left and not came back,
Mm-hmm.
what was life like for you?
I would have to say it was rough because of the guilt that I felt. And it was like over time, it just kept building and building and building.
Right, just building up.
Yes.
So your behavior was changing.
Yes.
Did you become more aggressive with your wife and son, or did
No.
you become
No.
more reclusive?
More reclusive, I would say.
More closed off?
Right. Because about 10 days to 2 weeks before the detective called, I was in such a state that I was only sleeping about maybe 2 or 3 hours a
I'm
night.
gonna stop you right there because they're gonna have to get the next episode to hear how this went down. Okay?
Okie dokie.
Yeah. So y'all know what it is. Look here. Tune in for the next episode, and we're gonna get into what that was like for him. Those 10 days. Is
Right.
what you said?
Right.
Before the detectives called you.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't come to your house to get
No.
you. They called
Right.
you. Okay, we're gonna start the next episode with that.
Okay.
We're gonna get into that. But this has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.